Do you think the Economic Recovery Act will work, has it worked, and what effect will it have on the economy?
You're talking about the stimulus, and I don't think it will work. We still have 10% unemployment over a year now, well over a year after it was enacted. It is nothing more than just more big government, more spending, and you can't borrow and spend money to make your way and find your way into prosperity. And all of this money basically is borrowed money. In fiscal year 09, last year, we borrowed 1/2 almost of the federal budget. Only half of the revenue came in was from taxes. The other half was borrowed money. That's not the way to get back to prosperity. And I don't think the sunset would have any effect one way or the other because it hasn't been effective to begin with. The things we need to do, Robert, are to freeze federal spending. We don't need to freeze it after this Obama and the Democrat Congress's add-ons of 20% last year in the stimulus. It needs to be frozen before that. If we'll be disciplined and leave the federal spending frozen year after year until the revenues begin to catch up with the outlays, and if we cut federal income taxes across the board on individuals and businesses, if we do that, I believe we'll have a situation where we can begin paying down our national debt. The revenues will overtake the outlays, I think, in 2 or 3 years' time. We've cut federal income taxes 4 times in our history. Calvin Coolidge did it, John Kennedy and Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush all cut federal income taxes. Each time we've had a tremendous economic boom. Each time we've seen a surge of federal revenue. The problem in the past has been we haven't had a disciplined Congress. Congress can't quit spending money. They just want to keep spending it. But if we'll have a disciplined Congress to do it, I think we can make this work. We can pay down our national debt and solve higher interest rate problems that are on our horizon and higher inflation problems. We're looking at an inflationary environment coming up. And one more thing about this. Ronald Reagan, of course, cut federal income taxes. We saw federal revenues double in his 8 years in office. We also saw federal spending more than double during his 8 years. Now, Ronald Reagan proposed a defense build-up that won the Cold War. I think that was justified. All the other spending of the Democrat House at that time, I don't think was. We've got to be disciplined about it, and we will. It'll work.
Will the Economic Recovery Act work? No, it will not. Let's talk about the stimulus packages. Bush passed the first one. Obama passed the second one. All promises that have been not kept and that have not been seen to fruition. Actually, it's made our economy even worse. Again, government is supposed to protect the consumer. We're not supposed to bail out companies. Capitalism does work. The government's not supposed to own banks. The government's not supposed to bail out businesses. We can't throw good after bad. Now, Obama said that his stimulus package would create jobs. Shortly thereafter, his own Department of Labor said that we've lost millions of jobs. And the unemployment rate, while it has gone down nationally from 10% to a little over 9%, in Mississippi is worse than that. We've not seen the great effects of the economic, what I call it is boondoggling. It's trying to create jobs, but we're throwing good after bad. Now, during FDR's time, he used boondoggling and helped create some great things later, but some programs noble in purpose should not be repeated.
I think that the stimulus bill is one that will cost our grandchildren and their grandchildren. I don't think it's worked. The proponents of that legislation said, okay, we've got to pass this $780 billion piece of legislation. We're going to get the money, borrowing it from the government of China and allowing our grandchildren and their grandchildren to repay it. And if we don't pass this legislation, unemployment will hit 8%. Well, we incurred the debt, and now unemployment has far exceeded that 8%. In North Mississippi, it's bumping 12%. If you use the administration's own figures of jobs created or saved, and I understand those figures are controversial, particularly when you describe jobs saved, because how do you define a job that's saved? But if you use their own figures, in the 1st Congressional District of Mississippi, the cost was over $300,000 per job created or saved. I would suggest that we could have had a bigger stimulus if they'd have chartered a crop duster, flown over the 1st Congressional District with a bushel basket of $100 bills and just thrown them out the window. Spending our grandchildren's money is not the way to stimulate the economy. The way to stimulate the economy is to allow men and women to keep more of their own money. And if we do that, we will create our own stimulus. A great example, coming up the last weekend in July, we will have the second sales tax holiday in the state of Mississippi. Items of clothing, $100 or under, will be exempt from our state's 7% sales tax. Now, leading up to that holiday last year, the first one, I asked my wife, if a store was having a 7% off sale, what would your reaction be? She said, 7% is nothing. I wouldn't even read the flyer. I'd throw it in the trash. Yet I rode around throughout North Mississippi, and what I noticed is that there was more activity going on those 2 days of that holiday than even the days following Thanksgiving, supposedly the biggest retail days of the year. The stores had to buy more inventory, which means the manufacturers had to manufacture more inventory. The stores bought advertising. They hired additional employees, or they kept their employees for longer hours, which means those employees had more money in their pocketbook. Those crowds reminded me of what I already knew. If we will allow men and women to keep more of their own money, we will create our own stimulus. We don't need a $780 billion stimulus out of Washington.